Starting live. Hi, everybody. This is Rita Townsend. This is take two on Friday afternoon live. I want to welcome everybody on, and I want to encourage you to share. We have some really funny things to talk about this afternoon, and I want to encourage you to share and comment so that I really know if this is of interest to you, and it might be of serious interest to some other people that you know. So I really appreciate it when you give me some feedback on this. And as usual, I try to share material that is applicable for everybody. Today it's about aging, but guess what? If you're over 20, you've been aging for a while. So we're going to talk about what that is, and I'm going to tell you some important things that you need to know about aging. And then the good news is I'm going to tell you some good news about aging and some of the recent science about aging that we all need to know. So here's a challenge for you. When was the first time you thought about aging? I hear 20-year-old women saying, oh my gosh, I've got lines and I've got wrinkles. I hear other people that are in their 60s and 70s already complaining about aches and pains. And I hear from other people that are in their 70s and 80s, and they're really struggling every day to have energy and vitality. And also being tired. And I'm really not talking about a vanity issue. I'm talking about a lifestyle issue. It's the daily things that we do. So raising a family, being in business, being an entrepreneur, or juggling all of that, how you feel and how you age going forward is going to become a very important matter. I like to use the term vitality because I think that says a lot. And you can't... unless you've had your head in the sand, you can't not hear more and more about people that are living longer and living some amazing lives past 100. And you're also hearing more and more about the diseases of aging that are more related to our lifestyle and to our choices along the way. So wherever you are in this aging process, today's information is really important to you. Even the mainstream media is giving us some great information about genes, about prevention of diseases, and issues about aging. So today I'm going to have some good information, some not so good information. I'm going to start with a really funny story from this morning. So this has kind of been one of those things that's been in my orbit today. Something I've been researching and studying for a while because I'm in the health and wellness space. So Darren Hardy talked about the golden age and gave a lot of statistics about 1895 when people were living much shorter lives, and the way they lived was certainly a lot different than the way we are today. And it really has only been a little over 100 years since everything has changed for us. But I want to tell you my story today. That was Darren Hardy. And then I was on a doctor call last night that had a lot of good information about aging, which I'll share in a minute. But today I decided I was going to get a flu shot. Now, at my age of life, a flu shot is important. So don't give me any advice on that. So I go to get a flu shot, fill out the papers, and I hand it to the pharmacist, who starts quizzing me. And she says, is this correct? Are you sure this is correct? Did you fill this form out correctly? Did you fill this in? 3 times. Like, I'm going to lie on a 1-page form to get my flu shot. So then she comes right out and says it. She says, are you sure you didn't make a mistake on this age line? And I said, no. Well, she goes through all these antics, and it was really funny. But anyway, I appreciated it. I always appreciate that. But it's also very serious. It's really not about the outside, it's more about the inside and the attitude, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to define what it is, I'm going to tell you the research on that, and I'm going to tell you where you can go to learn some really valuable information about aging, and then I'm going to tell you some good news about aging. So let's first go and see how they actually define aging. So this is from the National Institute on Aging, which is a great resource, unbiased research. Peer-reviewed research, which you should never go on the junk things. This is really great information, and it's free, and it's about aging, but it's also about a lot of the diseases that are related to aging. So the definition, aging is associated with changes in dynamic biological, physiological, environmental, psychological, behavioral, and social processes. Some age-related changes are benign, such as graying hair. That's easy to solve. Others result in decline in the function of your senses and the activities of daily life. This is the kicker. And increased susceptibility and frequency of diseases, frailty, or disability. So that is the technical definition of aging. So as you can see, it's pretty broad. But let's get down to some real research. I already shared from the National Institute on Aging. But if you're interested in more information, I'm going to tell you about some really great resources that I use. But first, I'm going to start out with the good news. The research is showing us now that your DNA is no longer 100% forecaster of your longevity or of the diseases. We know that about 20 to 30% of your genetic predisposition is in your DNA. And the rest of that, this is the good news, are the typical things that we always talk about, which is lifestyle, which is exercise, which is nutrition, motivation, activity. For me, I love the travel. It stimulates me. That's just a personal choice, but I think it's really important because I have to feel good and I have to be strong and I have to have a lot of vitality to do that. So from a personal perspective, I don't come from a family of people who live very long. A lot of the impressions that were given to me as a young woman growing up had more to do with vanity than they had to do with lifestyle or exercise or any of those things. So a lot of that is really the impression that you have about what aging is. And so busting the myth of aging is what we really can start thinking about, and don't wait. You need to start thinking about it very soon. So here's a little bit of information from Psychology Today that's going to back that up. Another great source. We should not be so concerned about our genes, but rather how those genes are expressed. In some ways, our genetic endowment is like a ski lift, getting us safely to the peak of our reproductive efficiency. Then it is our choice how to travel down the slope. Our journey can be exciting, risky, short, fast-paced, better-paced, and leisurely. Our lifestyle choices really matter. We can let our genetic code mechanically play itself out, or we can take charge and modify some of our genetic software through lifestyle choices. Okay, so this is from Psychology Today. So more good news about what we can do and what we can control in terms of aging at every step of the way. Here's another one from Psychology Today. Myths. Aging is immutable. It's in our genes. Nothing we can do about it. Wrong. Many of us assume that our aging is hardwired through our genes, and that longevity ultimately depends on wise choices from our parents and our grandparents. That seems compelling, except when you look at the research. And here's the next paragraph. While some of the genetic determinants of aging are clear, there is compelling evidence from a study of over 13,000 twins that 30% of our longevity relates to our genes, and the rest is written and is under our control. So more good news about this aging thing. So part of what I really want to help you do is understand that it's not an acceptance that you have to be bearing. It's something that you choose along the way, and the sooner you start making those choices, the better off you are. And the last little bit of really positive information is from Harvard, which is another great source. I use the National Institute on Aging. I use the National Institutes on Health. I use Harvard Health. I use Mayo Health. And I use Medical News Today, are probably the resources that I go to most often. And this one is from Harvard Health, which incidentally, all of these are periodicals and newsletters that you can get for free. So here's some ways that you can thank your brain At middle age, the middle age, the brain begins to draw on more of its capacity for improved judgment and decision making. So in middle age, we're already making the shift, and our brain is helping us to make that shift. Lots of information in this particular article, but some really specific things the older brain can help us do. It begins to compensate more for itself. We can do things like be more aware of situations around us. Believe it or not, this article says we should actually be able to do basic math a little more efficiently. That might be something to practice on. And the amygdala area of the brain consolidates emotion and memory and is less responsive to negative situations. I don't know, that's kind of interesting to me. It's like when you get older, you just take things for granted or adapt or just don't get excited about it. There it is, guys. It's in your amygdala, in your brain. It's part of how you're supposed to function. And this last little tidbit, which is good news from Harvard, attaining contentment. A few years ago, they started realizing that people were more satisfied with their lives at later ages, despite accumulating years and sometimes accumulated losses. They tend to minimize the negative and accept limitations and use their experience to compensate. I think that's wonderful. In a way, the science is telling us that there are lots of things that we can really do and really expect as we age. So the bottom line of what I'm sharing today is some really good news. And I think it's important to understand that wherever you are in your life, the things that you can take control of. So now I'm going to take a little bit of a deep dive into some really deep science that I've been studying recently that you might want to take a look at. Something that my company hasn't been involved in, and I have absolutely been over the moon at understanding this. So there are tools in your body, and those tools exist, and we've known that for a very long time. The challenge has always been to get to those tools. Well, I've given you some real practical things to be aware of today and some real practical places where you can go for some good answers. But we also know now that there's some enzymes and there's some protein pathways that exist in the body. And all we have to do is connect those two together. So I'm going to give you a little personal challenge. You can use the resources that I gave you, which is what I would recommend. And you can research something called the sirtuins. SIRTUINS, which is called our longevity gene. And the other little thing you might look up is an enzyme that exists in your body, and the abbreviation is NAD. It's a very long word, 3 words actually, and this is an enzyme. So when you connect the two, you are actually tapping into what research now is calling our longevity genes. And these genes talk to each other, and they know now that these genes not only are related to aging, but here's some even better news. They are also being used to treat addiction, depression, stress, chronic fatigue, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, a lot of things that we associate with aging, including weight loss, because our metabolism changed. So a little challenge for you there. If you want me to send you some really good information on that, I want you to comment in the comment section. I also want you to comment if you've been on my replay, because I have a lot of people on my replay. And let me know if you'd like some information on that. And I'm going to wrap up with 3 little important things for you today. So give me a little heads up if you want to research some more on that, and I'll send you to some good resources. But here's the really bottom line summary. And this is really coming from a personal testimony. I think the most important thing is really to be thankful and to be positive and just not give up. I never had anybody tell me that I needed to be limited no matter what. And I still keep telling myself that. And number two, I want to challenge you. Sometimes we get real lazy about learning, especially if we're no longer in a career. If we're on that career path, that's a lot more challenging to learn and keep up with the curve. I want you to continue to learn and continue to research. I gave you some great resources. And if you've got some good resources that you like, you can share those with me too. And then the last part of this is to give me a heads up and comment and let me send you some really great and valuable information. So I love it that I sort of am compelled to continue the research and understand it, because in my life, in my husband and my friends and my family, it's very applicable. There's lots of things that we still want to do. And I love it when I go someplace and somebody thinks I'm lying about my age and I have to produce my ID and my Medicare card. That was a good start. So I hope you enjoyed my content today. Share. Let me know about the resources that you're going to go out on or you need me to furnish. And I'll see you next time on my Facebook. Bye, everybody.